Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another Games Jobs Live live stream. I'm Harry Petch, the Community and Content Manager for Games Jobs Live, and today we're joined with another portfolio review series. So we had such a great response to the first one, which we ran last month. So we're back doing some more, and due to a lot of overwhelming demand, we're running another 3D art session. And today we are going to be joined by some lovely people from Flix Interactive. Claire and Glenn from Flix. Hello.
Hi there.
How are you both doing? How are you both doing today?
Very
Good,
well.
thanks. Yeah.
Thank you for having us here.
Brilliant.
You good?
So I'm doing good, thank you. Yes, it's been doing a lot of game development myself, so it's been a busy day today. But yeah, so Claire, Glenn, I mean, would you like to sort of introduce yourselves, what you do at the company, what Flix does as like a studio?
Yeah, of course, I can kick off. So I have recently joined Flix as their recruiter, which is very exciting. And I guess Flix essentially, so we would probably describe ourselves as a specialized bunch. So we have artists, engineers, working a lot with Unreal Engine, which we love. And our base is pretty much based outside of Birmingham. However, we are pretty much remote as well. So we do offer that. I know that's been a hot topic as well lately. So yeah, we do offer remote as well with our positions. And then what tends to happen is we will all come together once a month, have monthly meetups, project meetings, that type of thing. And right now, I would say we are working on some very exciting projects at the moment, to which we are also hiring too. So currently we are seeking some environment art. And then, so yeah, come and have a look at our web page, Seek Our Careers page. We're also on LinkedIn as well. If you have any questions, yeah, do reach out. We are here, we're hiring. We'd love to hear from you all. And yeah, I guess I'll pass over to Glenn.
Hello. Nice to meet you all, whoever's watching. Yeah, I am a principal artist at Flix technically, although I do dabble in quite a bit of tech art stuff as well. And yeah, I'm just glad to be here helping out. I do often help out at Flix with recruitment related things and interviewing candidates. So this is in my wheelhouse to some degree as well.
Fabulous. Yeah, thank you both for coming on. I've also sent the, if you want to go check out Flix Interactive's website, it's down very nicely in the bottom of the screen. If you want to check that out, there'll be like a careers page on that if you want to look at a lot of like the art positions that they have available. Yeah, so I mean, just starting off, before we get started, is there anything both of you would like to share before we get started about like making a good portfolio?
Yeah, I think this is a good question. And I guess I will play maybe the candidate in this case, because we are lucky to have Glenn here. And I guess from Glenn's perspective, what would you say makes a good candidate who maybe is sitting on junior to mid-level, maybe falling somewhere in between, a good portfolio? And I'll keep this on brand as well for our theme for, character art, maybe environment art. So, do you like to see a range, that shows some like poly, some wireframes, materials, textures? Or would you prefer to see in someone's portfolio a more in-depth, study of like anatomy or foliage or something like that?
So yeah, it depends on the role that they're applying for, I suppose. But usually for environment art sort of applicants, I would hope to see like 3, maybe 4 really polished environment art pieces in a game engine of some sort. Often people will only have like 1 or 2, and that can be okay, maybe, but you're going to give a better impression of yourself with 3 or 4. And with character art, a similar deal. If there's like 3 or 4 really strong pieces that prove that you've got what it takes, that will do a lot to give us confidence. Especially with character art, one of the things that separates people is anatomy. You can almost always see it when it's slightly off. And I think that's something that is a foundation that quite a few people could probably accelerate their career if they just got more of that foundation.
Yeah, I mean, I was also curious, Glenn, when it comes to, having a portfolio, coming up with those portfolio pieces and working on them in your own free time. Like, do you have any recommendations on where might be, good spaces to look at in terms of like developing those skills? Because like I'd usually sort of look to stuff like game jams and things like that as ways to start get good excuses to build up a good portfolio piece.
Yeah, I mean, game jams are a great way to get the sort of foundational skills, although because of the rush time frame, you might not create something that you really want to show off on your portfolio, especially as an artist. If you're applying for sort of AAA studios, you might be thinking, I need something a bit more polished, and that's fair. So I don't know all the latest communities online now, but I would say there must be a bunch of great communities that you could find that will help you to sharpen your skills. I'm sure there's Discord communities and the likes that you could probably join in on. Find people who are either in the industry or trying to get into the industry, and iron sharpens iron. You start to critique each other's work and become better and better at what you do. I did the same sort of thing long ago with forums and message boards like Polycount and Game Artisans and stuff like that. But these days that's old. And I'm not sure whether people still use them in the same way.
Awesome. Yeah. And I mean, I think if you want to take part in like a game jam or something like that, that might be over a little longer period of time. And also on that topic of Discord communities, we have one of those Discord communities as well, which you can join in the link down in the description that is currently going on at the bottom. But also, if you're looking for a game jam, at the end of next month in May, we're actually running the Game Parade Game Jams. We're running that back again. It's like a 10-day long game jam, so it's a lot more than like 48-hour, 72-hour ones. Yeah. So that'll be really nice. It'll be really good to see a lot of you there. You can sign up here. But yeah, I think if either of you have anything further you want to add, or should we get stuck in and start off with John's CV and portfolio?
Yeah, I think the only thing we wanted to say first was really, I guess, some like generic advice to candidates, because, applying for it, it's always scary and daunting. I think even as recruiters and stuff, we still have a lot of empathy for the process. It's not an easy thing to go through. As far as, building up these portfolios, doing the CVs, putting in the attention to detail for everything, it can be exhausting. So I guess some advice for us, like coming, I guess, from Flix is, there's a lot of noise out there about, what to do, what not to do in terms of your CV, your portfolio and things. And, we're hopefully here to help today in a way where we're making suggestions. And this isn't to say that, this is right and this is wrong. We're here to help strengthen. And I will die on the hill that I say, there's no such thing as a 100% perfect CV. I think nowadays you want to just aim for strength. You want a really strong package, portfolio and CV together, really showcasing the best of yourself. And I guess more context as well to where me and Glenn come into it from the candidate side, and a bit of understanding is really, to kind of simplify the process a little bit. You see a job description on a studio website. That job description has came around because we have a gap essentially in the project. So where me and Glenn come in is we're going to be viewing, your CV and your portfolio to see and be asking ourselves, can this person fill that gap? And that's really it. So to try and take all the, confusion and ebbs and flows out of it and help your mindset a little bit as you go through the process, because I know it can be a lot, is really that. And one thing that we do love at Flix is adaptability. So, if you have got strengths in, say, environment art, character art, but you're also interested in all these other side things, that's not a negative. For us, that's amazing. You know, we have so many projects on the go and things like that, that can already be an asset. It's just you're bringing more to the table. So I would say that is just, yeah, another little bit of advice, because, yeah, I know the process can be, and it's hard out there right now as well. So, yeah.
Yeah. I would just add to that, something that I wish I knew when I was trying to apply for roles as a much more junior 3D artist, is that declaring your skill level as accurately as you can in your description in things like ArtStation or LinkedIn or anywhere can really help people to find you in the first place, because they'll search for graduate or junior or whatever in the hope of finding a diamond in the rough, you know. And you know, I've done that at times myself, searched for those specific terms. And if you've for some reason put in your description something great like awesome, coolest modeler in London or something, I'm not going to find you. and it's going to potentially make it harder for you to be found, even if you are one of the best out there. Also, what I did wrong, I suppose, in the past was I often put my skill level as the skill that I wanted people to think of me as, when I should have been more realistic and looked at myself as I really am based on my CV and my current work. And I should have said I'm a junior, and I probably would have been offered more roles rather than saying I'm more than a junior, when clearly I wasn't quite there in terms of experience and stuff yet. So that's something that I would probably have benefited from in the past if someone had said that to me.
I think, yeah, that's some really good advice immediately heading off there. Brilliant. I think yeah, should we get started in and
Go for it.
take a look at, yeah, let's get stuck in. And we're gonna hop first into discussing John Solmos's CV. If Claire, I believe you've got some comments to make. I've got it brought up on my screen here.
Perfect, thank you. So yeah, initially with John's, I really liked, you know, simple, clear. We're not dealing with, you know, a crazy background, colorful text. The black and white, if in doubt, you know, it works. I would say with John, some things that I really liked here was, you know, one, portfolio link, right there at the top. We don't need to hunt for it. Saves us a lot of back and forth on things like this. And then also as well that I quite liked with John is when you go through his professional experience, and, you know, he has the title, he has the location, but he's also included the company website. And this isn't actually something that we often see. And to be honest, as a recruiter and for Glenn as well, like when we're triaging through CVs, sometimes these things can really help us. You know, if it's an indie studio, if it's a maybe off the cuff company that maybe isn't quite out there, and you've just given us that information and I can like click right into the business, see what it's about. I've got a little bit more context about that company. Then it helps me get a little bit more context as well to the job role, and when I'm going through the details of what they did. I also really liked John's attention to detail when he's talking about his experience within, you know, each section. It's a nice amount, you know, it's not too much, it's too little. I think he's got a really good layout there. And I guess for areas of improvement with John's is I'd maybe consider a possible different layout or template. And I guess there's so many resources for these now, which is great online. I would recommend things like Canva as well. That's really user-friendly just to pull your information into. Purely just because I think if this had a bit of a different layout, this would likely take the CV down to around about 1 to 2 pages. And that's what you're sort of aiming for. Most of it is a rule of thumb. 1 to 2 is great. 3, if it's necessary. But anything above sort of 3 to 4 is really, you know, as and when. And if it's, you know, we need to have that stuff in there and, you know, blah, blah, blah. But I think that would really help. Another thing I noticed was there's a couple of different font styles here in John's. So I believe at times there's Calibri, and then in different sections we've got Times New Roman. something, and again, I'm being picky here, so these are just little areas that you can maybe tweak. But yeah, I really love to see, that attention to detail when I'm looking at a CV is, fluidity when I'm looking at fonts and things like that are really lovely. One other pernickety thing is, I guess, the bullet point styles. So we have different bullet points in the professional experience to the bullet points used in, I believe it's like the software skill set. So even just aligning them, like a little goes a long way when we're looking at so many CVs at a time. This will just help it look a lot stronger, a lot more refined. Something else as well that John did a little bit differently, which I haven't seen a lot, is you'll notice on the professional experience on his first section, we have, April 2022 to present. But below that, there's no sort of dates and flow. It's gone more to tenure, which I don't think is a bad thing. I think, if that's included a little bit underneath, because what this can potentially do is, I guess, confuse me and Glenn, and it gives us room to start, making assumptions. Like, we don't quite know if there's been crossover on these roles. Maybe this person had a career gap, which again is not to say it's a negative. But I think going through dates and like kind of keeping them consistent, we can really see the flow, of someone's job, someone's career. Maybe they've stepped out and done volunteering for a bit. And again, that's something we can discuss, at a screening call stage or something towards the interview. But I think keeping the dates in line and keeping that fluidity would be really good. There was a couple other things as well there, Harry, that you've got. So just in the professional experience for each job role, you might notice that on some of John's, you can see, for e-papers, for example, we have remote/part-time, but then for some other positions that's missing. So I would say if you're going to include that stuff, like if it's, hybrid, you've worked on site, you've done full-time, just put them in and just keep it consistent. Always really good to see. And then I guess the other section we were looking at was education. And with this one, I don't think we see any dates here and, like sort of grading. That would be really great to see, because again, I don't think you want to leave any room, for me and Glenn to start assuming things, because for all we know, this diploma that happened, this person might have not even been able to finish the course, and it could be a family reason, it could be something else. But without, I guess, the achievement of the grade and the date there, you're left answering that question. Whereas, if it was put in, everyone's just a bit clearer and we're on the same page. But yeah, those were some of the feedback, I guess, we had, for John.
Brilliant. Awesome. And if we sort of took a look at his portfolio, Glenn, what are your thoughts on John's portfolio? Where should we start?
Yeah, well, I'd just like to give an overview of my thoughts so far. So looking at the CV, we were seeing information on there about the various things they've worked on. And often you would see those things shown in the portfolio as well. Now, I don't think some of that is in the portfolio. That might make us assume certain things about why they would not show it or something. It could be that there was reasons they couldn't show it, or perhaps they think that this is the most representative work of their skill set. But it does, that is something that can be a source of a little bit of confusion sometimes, potentially, because it is nice to see the professional work and the personal works all together, so you get a good idea of their professional experience and their personal artworks at the same time. But I think most of these are personal artworks. Some of them might not be. Starting on the top left, I'd say that latest, I think this is their latest work because it's in the top left and it's posted 8 months ago. The material work here is looking pretty strong. And you can see they've paid attention to sort of PBR workflows and the likes. I would say it still suffers a little bit from something that I notice in the rest of the portfolio, which is it's a little bit stiff. And even the pose and the anatomy, if you look at the photos of the person, they're much more naturalistic in their pose, and even their face has a bit more form to it, a bit more anatomy, structure. Obviously, in the photos, it has a lot more structure to it, and they've gone for a kind of stylized approach, which I have to respect. Has some limitations, but there's a little bit of missing anatomy understanding and things that I think this piece and the rest of the portfolio just shows that there's a little bit more work that could be done on the anatomy side of things to make everything feel more naturalistic and less like there's something a little bit off. And that's what I'd say. I'd say that like the rendering and like technically they have some great skills. Like they've obviously got a great understanding of the software that they're using and the lighting they're doing and the materials they're creating. They've come over the years, by the look of things, they've come to a great understanding of that stuff. But there's some foundational artistic anatomy knowledge that I think could be better across a lot of these. The elf next to the Eddie Munson, I think the shape of the head looks like it's missing a little bit of the anatomy sort of form that I would expect. It's not bad by any means, but it's separating you from many people who are reasonably okay and good at the job, the anatomy being great rather than just okay. This isn't a weak portfolio. I'd say the fact that they've got experience and that they're doing stuff that looks polished is a great step forward. But there is that sort of foundational skill level that I would be looking for personally in a character art portfolio, which I feel they could work on, the anatomy especially.
Yeah, I think would being able to do stuff like, showing, say, for example, like more poses or popping them into, like game engines to show that they're like game ready assets and kind of showing that part of the process. That might be like something to bridge that gap.
Yeah. And there is one asset here. So the real-time Balkani warrior, the third one across at the top.
There you go. Perfect.
So that one says it's real time. And personally, this is the one that I would be looking at most as I work with video games. So the rest of the portfolio is interesting, but I would want to see 3 examples like this that were done for real-time purposes for me to have a lot of confidence in a character artist. Ideally 3 examples like this sort of thing. And no, this isn't bad at all. It's pretty good. There's a bunch of things I'm looking at here, which to me, this looks 80% finished. There's like a 20%, which I would like to see. Like, for example, the wraps that are around his waist. They don't have any story to them. I can't really see any wear and tear or any sort of like areas on them which show that they've been torn a little bit or tightened more, so there's some sort of folds coming in there. I think those little things are what separate someone from being just good or truly excellent and attention grabbing when it comes to recruitment.
All right. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Glenn, for the that analysis. I think let's swiftly move on to Andranik's portfolio next.
Sure. Yeah. So there's quite a few things I like about Andranik's CV here. Obviously we've redacted out some areas, but at the top there, that I'm hoping is going to be, contact number, email address, maybe portfolio link. And this again, clean layout, black and white. Things are nice and clear. They're flowing in motion. And what I really did like as well with yours, Andranik, if you are here with us, because I can see some people are commenting in our chat, you have a really great intro. Like Andranik's profile summary at the top is actually quite strong. And I would say this is a really good example. You know, you want to keep this just a few sentences, but what it really is good is showcasing his skill set. You know, we've got a little bit about the strengths, what he enjoys working on, but for me, it's really the sort of end sentence, you know, with the focus on that. I really enjoy as a recruiter as well, because this sort of tells us what this person's looking for and what it is they want. I think this is always a good thing to do in your CV when you're, you know, doing that profile section, no matter which way you write it. I think it's a good thing to bear in mind talking about future tense. You want to be looking ahead. You know, I'm seeking X role at X type of studio. Great, perfect. We're, you know, aligned there. Or, you know, they might drop some words in and then that might hit me and Glenn because he's basically, you know, in a roundabout way, he's actually describing one of our projects already. So we're like, that's great, you know, they could be a fit for this. So I think all of that is really great. What I've sort of noted down just for, I guess, areas of improvement and things like that, of just strengthening this, I guess would be the margins. I think we could narrow these because this, again, I think would then shorten the CV just to a couple of pages and really help you save space. There was a section as well towards the top, Harry. Yeah, perfect. Just on his first work history there. Again, great detail in these. They're very descriptive. We have, again, use of systems. Again, love to see this. But I think it's just the last bullet point there. You'll notice maybe, you know, some of the other ones start off with developed, produced. And then the last one is the only one, I guess, that stuck out because it says I can. And I think sometimes when you're writing in tense, you want to kind of just follow it the way through. But I also think that Andranik could sell himself a bit more in this as well. So instead of saying, you know, he ran the reviews, you might swap that to something like, you know, successfully led reviews. And that to us, you know, you might be thinking it's the same thing, but you're telling us quite a different story about it and a different capability to that skill set that you're capable of running, you know, these reviews. The fact you've led it, that might again be a follow-up question that comes in the interview down the line. Well, how many people were in this and how, you know, how many did you lead? So that's really great. I think a little bit further down, we have within, I want to say the education section. There we are. This is something that came up when we look at the grade, but we can see grade, then we have /GPA. So I think maybe that bit could be a little bit confusing. Like sometimes we're like, you know, are we looking at the grade, GPA, what is that? Just a little bit clarification there. And then something else as well to the languages here. And this is in general, I guess, a bit to everyone, and it's not really specific here, but I know this has come up before when we have bars or, you know, some kind of scoring system that's 8 out of 10, 10 out of 10. This can be a bit difficult sometimes for us to gauge what that means because, you know, to me looking at this, I could maybe think that this person's fluent in all of them when that might not be the case. It might just be that they think they have a good strength level in language, but, you know, is that just grammatically? Is that, you know, verbal? Is it speaking? Is it writing? I think one thing that would strengthen this for me in language areas in general is if you can sort of specify, you know, are you fluent in this language? Is it conversational? Is that the comfortability that you're feeling? Or, you know, do you feel advanced? Even those descriptive words are a little bit more helpful than sometimes, you know, 2 out of 10, 8 out of 10. And I think also someone, if you want to push that further, you can always use the SURF method with languages, which essentially the, you know, full terminology of it is Common European Framework of Reference. And what this essentially does is it's a little bit more of a strategic result, that you've been certified by a test provider and you've took a test and this is your result. Usually it comes in the form of 6. So what will happen is, you might have seen before, English A1, A2. That tells us that, maybe beginner level, quite conversational, is familiar, but maybe not quite confident. Then we sort of move into B1, B2, which is intermediate. This person has a really good understanding of the language and could probably translate quite a few things. Even speaking, they might have a really good, pronunciation. Then you get up to C1 and C2. And that's basically, you're near enough advanced at that point, and we're reaching, this person's really fluent, very decent, understanding. The spelling's great, the grammar's really good, pronunciation is strong, things like that. This, again, for me, when I'm screening CVs and stuff like this, it really helps me, because one thing I will say about Flix is we love multifaceted skills. So just for an example, I guess with Andranik, is, we're looking at this as an artist, which is fantastic, but to have this kind of frame of adaptability is even better, because for us, we can have, Andranik on a project, doing artwork, and, we have this person who's proficient in all these systems and these great things, but then our project and client might need some localization translation support some point down the line. And then boom, like it's an unbelievable asset to have, and I would celebrate, a language skill always. I only speak one language, and I always find, anyone who can speak more than 2 it's impressive. I think it's a thing to really celebrate. It shows really great knowledge. It shows great understanding. You often then come with a really great frame of reference to different things, because you're seeing it in a multitude of cultures, which is really great. And that's only going to add like additional support onto the project and then make you a more vital candidate. So yeah, I would always say that, like, push that up, because that was like an incredible thing to celebrate, that you can speak 3 languages. I think that's amazing. And then lastly here, under the sort of websites, portfolios, profiles, again, Andranik, we love that you've got multiple things here. We've got the profile, we've got the art station, all of that. What I would say is just hyperlink them all. We've got, one that's hyperlinked, rest of them not. Just hyperlink them all for us. And then, that's, again, easier. And then the last part here, the software and skills, I would just maybe suggest like a little bit of reframing on this. So you could maybe look to take these horizontally. You can maybe look to put them in a table. You could maybe look to bullet point them in a certain way. And as far as the software, you could group that together to engines. This is the one I work on, like have it a little bit more structured. And yeah, maybe a little bit more aligned and neater. But overall, I'd say, yeah, really like nice CV. And yeah, that would kind of be our feedback.
I think can I add a little bit of something there?
Yeah, go for it, totally.
It helps me when people put their software in some way, they mark out which ones they are most proficient in. It doesn't have to be the same way on every portfolio, the method that you mark them out as your main proficiency. But if I can at least know which ones are the main things that you would like to use a lot in your job, it really helps me to understand how you fill that gap that we might have. Like if you're super good at making, I don't know, substance designer textures, and that's the main thing that you like doing, but you've got 3D Studio Max written on your software and you hardly use it, I wouldn't know that unless you point it out some way.
Yeah, that's a really good that's a really good point. Yeah. Should we also, while we're at it, Glenn, should we move over to his portfolio as well?
Yep, absolutely.
Let's do it. Yeah. Brilliant. Yeah, where should we start with for his?
This is a real strong portfolio, but I guess my starting point would just be the overarching feel of looking at it is it's a little bit overwhelming, just because. So if I'm, for example, looking for a character artist, I'm going to be like, okay, so how do I see all the characters?
It might
like,
be character
is
creation.
it that one? So like, if you open that one,
we'll click character creation, see what happens.
I'm like, oh, but there's concept art in here. I would have put that in a concept art category. You see what I mean? It's a little bit overwhelming for me anyway. If I'm looking at a bunch of portfolios and I have to do some legwork to figure out which bits are the bits that I should be looking at, it's not putting me off the person altogether, but it's a little bit of extra effort to try and figure out what is and isn't legitimately useful for the role that I'm looking for. And then there's also a bunch of amazing work here on like it's more like video presentations of like meta-human characters doing stuff and things like that. It's really impressive stuff. But I'm glad that they do have some categories so that I can get to these different things. Because with a portfolio this big and this varied, you need it. But yeah, ideally I would have liked just a section on character, like real-time characters. And then I could click on that and be like, aha, this is the stuff that's legitimately useful for the role that I'm looking for.
And I think like, perhaps it might be that there's, that might be included in these portfolios, but because there's so much of it, like maybe sorting those to the top or really signposting those a lot better. Like, I think it's always weird because it's cool having so much experience and that kind of stuff. And you want to, you want to show that off, but how you show that off whilst creating like a nice, I don't know, barrier for the reviewer is always something that I get a bit stuck with.
Yeah. But clicking on the art pieces themselves, like that ogre warrior, like that doesn't come up here in the character creation, but the ogre warrior, which was on the main front page, it's not this one.
Let me find it. Here we go.
It's in the all section. Yeah, like if I click on that, I like the way they've broken this down. I can see really good details in the high poly mesh being shown to me in that image above where you are now there. And then I can see a nice breakdown of the low poly and how that was created. It looks like it's probably being done to the kind of specs that people would use to make a game, which gives me a lot of confidence. There are quite a few people who these days don't include this information. They'll show you something cool like that and then leave you to imagine that it's actually made properly for a game when it might not be. So this is great to see this much information. It would be nice to know a little bit more about what the purpose of this is. You see there on the right-hand side, it says Ogre Warrior, but I'd like to know, was it made for, it could be made for a mobile game for all I know. At which point I'm like, wow, that's really interesting. What kind of mobile game could have this kind of thing? I don't know. Or it could have been made for a specific art style. Like it does look like it's got a specific sort of shadowing to it. If you look at the main render at the top, the shadowing is very like black and intense, which is an interesting art style. There might be a reason for that I don't know. And it would be cool for me to understand that. Otherwise, I might judge them wrongly, and I might look at that and say, those shadows are a bit black. They should have lightened them up and used some global illumination and lit this better. But there could be very good reasons why it's been done that way. Doesn't diminish from the fact that it's a great model. So I already have good confidence that this person has what it takes to make game-ready assets. And they've got a good few examples of game-ready characters on their portfolio, as far as I can tell. So there's not much doubt in my mind that they can do the job. And that's fantastic. It's, I suppose, the big question, if we got to the point of an interview with this person, would be, what do they want to do with their lives? Would they love to be making characters all the time, or do they prefer to be dabbling in concept art and things like that? It would be that sort of conversation.
Yeah. All right. Brilliant. Yeah, brilliant. I think that's, thank you for all that feedback then. Next we have Fahad's CV. if Claire, you would like to walk us through Fahad's CV.
Yeah, of course. I can see Fahad's in the chat as well. So hello.
Yeah, if you do have any comments as it goes on, like please do write them, and I'll try to bring them in.
No problem. So yeah, Fahad, my goodness, like already such a great amount of experience. Kicking this off, it's already amazing to see the journey you've had going from, 3D art, then it's like, whoa, and then we're back to 3D art. Like, you've had some really good titles, some amazing experience here. I would say as well, for just layout purposes also, this one really clear. I do like the banner down the side because, again, this is not, it's clear for me. I can still see all the text here, even though there's a pattern behind it. It's not overly done, I can still see name, title. We have hyperlinks. The skills, I like that they're all just placed together like this. Again, this is really easy for me to skim, and it's very considerate for people like me and Glenn when we can also just see the software listed out like this as well. It's really great. I would say as well, there's been a really great, level of detail written within, each of the kind of job descriptions, keeping them in as well for each section that you've done, as long as with the dates formatting, that's all aligned. It's really nice to see the font and everything's kept consistent all the way through. Some notes, I guess, we've put together for this one when, kind of taking a look over everything, would be that you actually have some space to play around with, which is great. You've kept it to one page so well that you actually now have a section to fill. And I think that's always great. So what I would maybe suggest is towards the top section, some form of an intro or profile summary or something, because I think with the career journey you've had, what I'm then asking myself as a recruiter is, okay, 3D artist, but again, what's the focus? What is it that this person wants? Do they want to work on console? What kind of projects are they looking for? What studio are they looking for their next long haul? All of that stuff's really helpful, because these are questions that we're going to ask, and we'll combat there. But if you've already provided it to us and given us that piece of information, you will then find there's a lot less back and forth during that beginning stage, which can always help later down the line. And I think what would be great as well is, I think it's in the section where the senior environment artist is Harry. You know how we have like the bullet points there, and then right at the bottom we have, Fahad's published games. I think celebrate that. I think that actually needs its own section. So that could probably be where that bottom piece, gets made up. I think make it its own thing. These are really things to celebrate, that you've been a part of these titles. So shout about it. What you could also potentially add in as well is anything that's a bit ad hoc, and you can make this into whatever you like, really. I personally, for me, what I did with my CV, as I was growing and, showing my age, your experience builds and stuff. So it builds in a certain way. And I can imagine through all of these positions that you've had, there'll be highlights probably from them that you could capture and turn it into some form of an achievement summary. That's really nice to see on CVs nowadays. And I do enjoy that, because sometimes it's, you can't really fit it into the role, but you're like, I did this extra thing and it was actually really well done, and I saved the company this time on the project, or I did this and I achieved this. What was the impact of it? And then I think with this one as well, we noticed in this slight bit that's redacted, Harry, towards the top, I guess I'm guessing at this point this could potentially be an email address or a phone number, but it looks to me like it's maybe one or the other, and I would always go with both. Because this will be with me and Glenn, when we're triaging CVs quite fast, and Glenn only has a little bit of time, if I've not got that person's phone number, just to jump on a call with them when I've got a moment, it again Harbor is a little bit more back and forth to get the contact number, whereas if you're just giving me your email address and your contact number and your LinkedIn, I've then got 3 methods of contact to then reach you on. And that's great because, yeah, it only helps us. What else was there? Oh, education section, I believe. Yeah, at the bottom, again, this has come up before, but some grades here and potentially some dates as well. If you want me to include it, that would be quite helpful. But yeah, I would say with Fahad's, I mean, I'm looking forward to getting stuck into his portfolio because, yeah, his one is really great. And he's had a very strong career path. So not much, you know, to work on. I think these are more tweaks and things that would just add like a bit of strength, really.
Brilliant. I mean, that's yeah, pretty great to see how, like, you know, this is kind of like almost like one sort of aim for if you're definitely like, you know, junior looking to sort of go up to that next level. Kind of a good example going up from here. I was going to say, Glenn, we before we hop into the portfolio real quick, I will also say we did have a quick question from the chat from CG Eyes, who was asking about, you know, do you, I think maybe that might also be for both of you as well. Like, do you consider like character artists with character designs from scratch, like in a portfolio? So they're talking like, you know, I think they're asking like how best to show everything from concept up to final 3D model in a portfolio in a way that's like useful.
I think there's also potentially, it's kind of tricky to understand what the job roles are that are going on out there. When someone says character artist at a video games company, what they usually mean, I can't speak for everyone, but what they usually mean by character artist is the person who makes the 3D models of the characters that go into the game. And they'll have to prepare them for animation, and like all that stuff is super important. But the concept art of the character is usually done by a concept artist, and not the expectation isn't that the character artist would have done any of the concept art. Occasionally that might be the case because there was an opportunity or the person wanted to or something like that in some companies. But the vast majority of the time, character artist doesn't mean you actually created the character from conception of the idea.
Great, great, awesome. I hope that answers the question in the chat there. Yeah, I think we can just segue right into this, Glenn. With Fahad's portfolio. Where should we go from? Where should we start?
Well, I'd like to start with that banner at the top. That is fantastic. That Sydney homage type piece. It's really eye-catching. It's really brilliant work. I'm very impressed by that. But when you click on it, there's something to note. Not the banner, but the actual artwork down there. Yeah, it is just that one angle, and although it looks like it is a 3D piece in Unreal Engine, we're not getting to see any angles of it, which, as someone who's making video games, it's really important to us to get an understanding of whether you understand 3D spaces and how a character would move through them. So although this very much does impress me, it doesn't give me the confidence I need to know that he can make a video game. So I look at the rest of the portfolio, and there's bits of these VR things where he's had to think about 3D spaces. Fahad has worked hard to make users able to move through these spaces by the look of things with VR, etc. So there is some understanding of that process, which is that does help us to know that they have some understanding of making interactive experiences rather than just beautiful still shots. But there's an Unreal Engine scene just there in the top middle of a sort of forest nighttime at the museum. That's it. So I'd say this is the closest thing in the portfolio to an actual video game location. And unfortunately, it's just not had that much work. It's only been made in 3 days. mostly using Quixel assets. That's okay. Like, it's good that they've used assets and made it. Like, that's great. Using assets you can get hold of to create a composition is a great way to get some skills in and show off that you have what it takes to make a video game level. I just feel like it's a bit rushed, and there's not enough here for me to be confident that I could give them a task to do on a real video game and they'd get it done to the quality level that we would require.
All right. Yeah, I think that's honestly some really valuable feedback. And again, we're trying to like cover not just capture art, also like environment art, all these different sectors. So it's really good to see, it's really good to see someone to talk about like hard surface and all that as well, Glenn. I think one thing which I'd like to also do to kind of like jump into this and like show that we kind of have a lot of different experiences. I'd like to bring up more of a junior portfolio from Ben Peake. We couldn't get through enough time to show off like the CV, unfortunately. But Glenn, I know you kind of had some thoughts on Ben's portfolio, so I did want to bring those in beforehand. He's also a hard surface artist.
Yeah, sure. I mean, if you scroll down a bit, we can see a bit more of the portfolio. So I think this is like a good starting point for someone to be at. Like, but I don't think they're quite ready for a junior role in the industry looking at this. I feel like there's just some work to do getting some pieces together which are more representative of something that looks like an in-game environment. Each of these individual assets on their own isn't bad. It's just that there's no example here that gives me confidence that the person could take all the assets and put them in one nice composition and a player could walk around it and feel like they're actually in a game. I just don't have an example of that in this portfolio, really. And that's what we really need to see in someone who's applying for an environment artist role is environments. We need to see an environment that convinces us that they could be left to make a bit of a video game on their own, and then the art director could come back to them and give them some feedback, and they'd be on their way creating the rest of it. And without enough evidence of that, it's really hard to be confident in the person's skills. It looks like Ben is on their way to learning loads of great things. There's so much going on here, and all the best to them. Keep on that path and get some stuff in the portfolio which looks more like a finished environment. And I think at that point, I think that would be the point where they should apply to a few places and see if they can get a foot in the door.
Like being able to bring like these assets in like a cohesive style, in like a cohesive like wow. I mean, that you can just boom.
Yeah, I mean, what they've got here is mostly props and stuff. And yes, there are sort of prop art positions and things, I suppose, but more of the art positions that I see are environment art rather than just props. So you'll be more employable if you can get environments done, is what I was thinking.
All right. Yeah. Okay, great. Cool. I think we've got just enough time for basically one more CV and portfolio to cover in this. So we have Cayenne Lao's portfolio and CV to cover. And yeah, Claire, where should we go with Cayenne's portfolio?
Yeah.
CV
so
even.
I loved Cayenne's CV. Can I just say I love it? So usually, I tend to, advise or frame away from, colored text, but I hope that you would both agree with me here that it works. It's done in a very soft way where it's neutral tones, but it's not difficult to read in any way. It's still very legible. Again, the one page here is done very well. I would say, again, this is a really solid example of good layout, clear. Everything's kind of there as to what I'm needing to see, the software, the right-hand panel down the side here, very strong, because I think what Cayenne's done really well is she has split her skills and soft skills. And sometimes people have them all merged together, and that's not a bad thing, but this again just gives a little bit more clarity. And especially when we're reading, it kind of differentiates, you know, those hard skills, you know, what she's talking about with the character design and things like that, but then the soft skills as well. I think that's a really nice touch. Again, also with the languages, as we spoke about earlier, you know, I have a bit more context there as to, yeah, what she's fluent in. Again, can I just say very impressive that you speak all of these. Really great, like, skill to have, like, very impressive. I'd say with this one too, what I really enjoyed, again, the font, the formatting, a lot of this is the same the way through. In terms of just, I guess, areas of improvement, for us, we were kind of thinking towards the top of the summary, this might need rephrased just a little bit, because one, I do love the passion in it. I love the sort of storytelling, like, that is coming across like full steam. But what I would say is, the, you know, that end sentence, again, coming back to what we said before, the focus, I think, is lacking there a little bit. So just tell us what you're looking for, really. You know, maybe it might just be a couple project examples. You know, you might even start talking about your artwork as well, of, you know, you enjoy this stylized version and this is the type of project that I'm seeking out. You know, my next role that I see myself envisioning in is here. I'd love to work at Y Studio. All that sort of stuff is great. There was a little typo as well, just towards the bottom. I think it's under the mentorship section, Harry. So yeah, right at the bottom. So online private, yeah, we're just missing the R there. That was something. One other thing as well was just at the top was a little bit consistency over the hyperlinks. So we have the ArtStation there one on the right hand side, which is hyperlinked, great. But then over on the left, you'll see we have LinkedIn, and it is hyperlinked, but it's sort of a hidden hyperlink, if you know what I mean. And I think what Cayenne can maybe do here is actually keep all the links to one side. So maybe if she moved the LinkedIn section to just below ArtStation, and then we moved our West Midlands location section over to the other side. Just little things like that, to me, I'm like, that would be great. But yeah, I would say with this one, like, it's in a really good place. Again, with the title, as well as Glenn's mentioned, sometimes with, you know, the skill set there, they're aware of where they're sitting. You know, they're still aiming for junior. So again, that reaffirms to us title, where we're looking at, skill-based. And the other one tiny thing as well was the one at the bottom between the mentorship and her honors, was this could maybe be flipped around, because her experience section goes in date order, but this one is a little bit back to front, if you know what I mean. So the more recent one could go on top. But yeah, was also a really fan of Cayenne's portfolio. So I guess happy to jump on into that for good.
Yeah, I think, yeah, bring it onto the portfolio for the last little section right at the end. Here we go.
Yeah. So this is a lovely bunch of work here. I'm impressed. I mean, the thing that I would note, though, is if you go into that Sea of Thieves fan art, which I think is the latest piece, if you go down the page, the way this is presented, and it's just, that's excellent. Just this, the whole presentation of this is just what we like to see out of a professional portfolio. I think just about anyone would be impressed with this particular piece here. What the only issue is, it makes all the other pieces on the portfolio pale in comparison, because it just is a cut above all the rest of the portfolio. The rest of the portfolio feels like this is their journey, and then that Sea of Thieves piece is like the culmination of the journey. It's now getting to the point where they are very much ready for production work on a video game. But these three pieces leading up to it feel like there's bits there which are a little rough. They're not bad by any means, but they didn't tell me that they were ready for making a video game so much, those three pieces. Even though the one is in Unreal, it's good, but it doesn't have the polish of that final Sea of Thieves piece. It feels a little more loose. That's not to say it's bad, though. This is a very strong portfolio. So it's good that they've got 4 pieces in here. It's good that there is a variety to some degree. It might be nice to see a character that's more masculine, a male character or something would be good. Or maybe something that's not human as well might give us more idea of what you do when you come to creatures. That sort of thing might be nice as well. But yeah, just a couple more with that same level of presentation and quality as that Sea of Thieves fan art. And I could imagine lots of people would be interested in this person.
Brilliant. Yeah, I think that's definitely a cool place to end it off of. Yeah, I mean, we've taken a look at a lot of sort of junior, sort of getting into sort of mid-level, a lot of these sort of different experiences from the whole basically the whole sort of like range of experience levels. I don't know if you have any like final thoughts or final tips or suggestions based on everything that we've seen today, like any closing thoughts on what people can be doing or learn from each of these portfolios, if any's got like a last thoughts.
Yeah, I don't mind. I mean, I only had one comment, and this is again not about any of these amazing people that we've gone through. This is just experience as a recruiter of things that have happened in the past, and just to be mindful of. So, when you're giving us your portfolio links and anything like that, even if it's not an art station and you want to give us more of, a show reel, something like that, or you're sending us some zip files or other folders. One thing that's happened sometimes is that we're often missing like a password because, something will be password protected and then we're missing a password. Such a great thing to always just include us in, because this can be a back and forth with me also then harboring up time as well for Glenn, because I don't have that password yet, so I can't fully let him into this person's work or this demo or show reel because we don't have the access. So yeah, that's just one thing I wanted to kind of add in there, just to be mindful of, because it comes up every now and again, and like, we're all human. It's been done before, but it helps us a long way when we're dealing with the turnover and things, and we've got a lot of people to screen. So that's definitely something that can help.
Fabulous.
Yeah. I think I would probably just like to add that, I mean, I can speak for myself that I've been there. I've been that person struggling to get into the games industry. I very much empathize with some of you who might not be in the role that you'd like to be in yet. I mean, I think I spent about 3 years doing 3D art that wasn't game industry related, and wished that I could be involved, and kept applying to places. I very much know the struggle. So my heart goes out for you, and I hope that all of you keep your enthusiasm and your joy and your drive to create cool stuff, because that really does come across. When you do get that final interview you've always wanted, that enthusiasm and joy and drive might just be what gets you in the door.
Mm-hmm.
Brilliant. Yeah, I think that's a brilliant place to leave it off of. Yeah, Claire and Glenn, thank you so much for joining in and giving your time to take a look at some of these portfolios. I think there's a lot of valuable knowledge and ideas just for not just for artists as well. Just really good advice on a lot of CVs and portfolios in general. So thank you so much for that. I think if you do want to check out Flix's jobs that are available, again, flixinteractive.com. You can check out the different jobs that are available there as well. And yeah, thank you everybody for tuning in on this live stream. If you are watching this live or at the end and you want to put in your own portfolio, we're going to be branching these out from 3D art to more disciplines. Please do take a look in the description below and send them through, because the more variety, the better we can sort of make these things. But I think with that, I think we're going to call it for today. So yeah, thank you very much for joining, everybody. Please do join us on the Discord if you want to have a look. And yeah, with that, we'll see you next week for another Games Jobs Live stream. Good luck, everybody. See you later.
Thank you all.